Let's begin with, why exactly did you decide this is the time to step away?
Well, everyone who's elected to office has to look into the future and make a judgment. Will I run for office again? Consider a lot of factors. But I think for me, the most important factors were knowing that this was the time in my life when I needed to rebalance, to pay attention to my family, pay attention to the things that I've been trying to learn and the kind of changes that are really in front of me in terms of things that I would like to accomplish still. But it also is a time when our state's economy is getting better. In our office, we get to see there lots of good things going on in the state. So the best time to make a change is a time where there's a lot of good, positive energy, and I know really excellent young leaders. So for me, I know it's the time to step aside because it is time for new leadership to become part of our state's overall government, and this is a good place for that to happen.
After you had announced that you were not going to seek re-election, you were quoted in the St. Paul Pioneer Press saying that one of your proudest accomplishments was helping Minnesota retain its #1 status in voter turnout. What are some of the factors that you think contribute to this?
Well, we've had this high national ranking for quite a while, essentially since we passed Election Day registration. But I note that Minnesota is #1 in a number of things: civic, volunteerism, charitable contributions. We are a civic-minded people. I think we love this state, and we have a kind of personal responsibility that we take care of this state, and that includes voting. But also am very proud that we were able to take the business services side of the office and bring it up to be #1 in the nation. So those are the two sides of the office: the election, the democracy side, the business services, and I feel like I'm turning the office over with both sides of the office in very good shape.
Well, and during your time in office, there have been 2 very closely watched recounts. You helped launch several programs, including one that protects the addresses of victims of domestic violence. You've helped improve efficiencies in your office. How do you think these issues craft your legacy?
Well, what I'm hoping is that I've done my best to be remembering and honoring all who've come before me, because I inherited a fantastic staff. We have a fantastic system of elections that has kept Minnesota #1 for years. All of the things that have come before me, I want to be known as somebody who took that history and heritage and out loud said thank you and remembered it. But as you mentioned, we also have to be very good stewards of the system and the inheritance. For example, even our state capitol, which is the #1 symbol of our democracy, the #1 symbol of our system of government, making sure that my voice has been one that's helped lead us to a new place of taking care of that state capitol, just like we take care of our elections. But when I look to the question of legacy, I think about those when they came before us who dug deep inside their hearts, their minds, their pockets. They built a beautiful state and many things for us, great systems of elections and all of that. So I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make sure that the future generations have the same opportunities that we've had, have the same gifts that they can be appreciative of, and make sure that we're making things better for those who will come behind us. And so lots of ways to do that, but that's what I'll be thinking about.
You were very vocal in your opposition to voter photo ID. Let's talk a moment about that ballot initiative and it eventually being defeated by Minnesota voters in the last general election. How much of an impact do you think your voice had in the defeat of that measure?
Well, I think the proposal, which was to eliminate Election Day registration, that was the main proposal. Minnesotans oppose that. They like our system. They trust our system. That's why we're #1 in the nation. So I have the same feeling. I like our system. I trust our system. Proposals to eliminate same-day registration not only came up in the constitutional amendment, but there were those who went to court to try to have our system of Election Day registration overturned, and the courts strongly affirmed the Minnesota system. So I feel like I'm in the mainstream. I like our system, and I'm very, very clear that we can always make things better. Human beings have the capacity to make things better. The great thing about the recounts was having the opportunity to put an electron microscope on our system and find out. For one thing, we are now a people who like to vote early through the absentee ballot process. This last year, we've opened that system up so you don't have to make up an excuse or make up some kind of phony thing. And we know that kind of change is what Minnesota voters would like to have. And I do believe that having those big recounts helped illuminate some of the changes, and we've now been able to bring those into effect with the action by the Minnesota legislature this last year.
You have roughly, what, a year and a half left in office, and before the cameras were rolling, you were saying that you've been formulating a list, and there's a lot to do between now and then. What are a couple of the key things that you want to get accomplished?
Well, our biggest single task of the past now 6.5 years has been taking our business services system and actually making it digital so that all Minnesotans, no matter where they live, can have access to those services and make sure they're 24/7. We have 60,000 people a year creating new businesses in Minnesota. We have about 500,000 businesses, and all kinds of citizens use our services, whether checking up on a contractor or getting a notary for themselves. So the big thing we've done that's not very visible to most of the public is to make that system digital, and we have only a little bit left to do, but of course you want to complete that last mile so it's a whole system. So that's one of the bigger things. The second thing is we had some major changes in state law around election administration that need to be implemented. Some have to do with making it easier for our townships and towns to administer the mail-in ballots. The legislature has now given all townships the right to use all U.S. Postal Service mail balloting, which will save a lot of money, help voters. I mean, it's a very good advancement, but we need to do quite a bit of computer work to make sure that happens. It's also right in the middle of our state's Civil War 150th sesquicentennial. I co-chair with Representative Dean Erdahl. Lots are happening. Gettysburg's coming up. That's kind of a high point, but there's still much more to do. And then finally, there are many things that go into a big election like the one coming up next year. Everything from having all the systems in place to training new people to making sure that our newly turned 18-year-olds are registered and welcomed and they know how to vote. Lots of folks move to Minnesota, making sure those folks know what's going on with our system. And so we have much to do to make sure that we go into a big election year, and of course we'll have our Vote in Honor of a Veteran program, our new website to make sure those serving overseas in the military will have full access. Lots of things that have to do with making sure that next year, which is one of those big election years, will go smoothly for everyone.
So it's fair to say that you're not checking out by any means as you finish your tenure.
That's right. I say to people, I've got 19 more months and then at least 19 more years, and I've had a life solely devoted to public service, and so this form of public service and elected office as Secretary of State has been a very important thing, and it's a very good fit for somebody who trained to be a high school social studies teacher and who's been active. But it's also an opportunity in this moment to be appreciative and to remember all who helped me to get oriented to the office, who helped me make sure that I knew what was the next step, and of course to share with the rest of Minnesotans what an amazing group of people we have here in St. Paul and all over the state who serve us each and every day as our public servants. I have had an inside look at the public servants who make our lives in our state safe and sustainable and secure. It's a fantastic group of people, and I feel honored to have been able to serve, but I also feel very excited about being able to share what I've learned after those 19 months have passed, and I hand off that baton.
And Mr. Secretary of State, in a minute or less, what kind of advice will you give to the person who you hand that baton to?
Well, the first thing is that this is over 150-year-old system that's been built for us by many people, and it's fantastic. The system that we use for creating and for keeping up with our business, the systems we use for our elections. And so the first thing is an appreciation of what we have. The second thing is they will be coming in at a time where Minnesotans will be getting both older and younger. By that I mean our demographics are changing very rapidly. Older citizens are becoming the new entrepreneurs, the AARP and SPA and all this. So we know that all of the things that we do in our office will be affected by these changing demographics, votings and everything. So we've got to really pay attention to that. And then finally, It's been important to me that we keep track of and keep promoting our history, our heritage, our values, our culture. We are here in a moment of recognition of the nation's Civil War. It's kind of a good fulcrum for looking at the future because it's when the state was born. But each and every month that passes, there's a chance, an opportunity for reminding the public, working with schools any way that's possible to help people remember that this dream, this vision of liberty and justice for all is one that was a gift to us. Incredible people sacrificed to give us this opportunity. Our job as the temporary occupant of an elected office is to be a good steward, to remember and to honor and appreciate that, and then to make sure that we are investing so that for those times we shall never see, they have the same gifts of opportunity that we did.
Okay, with those words, Mr. Secretary of State, always a pleasure to have you on Capitol Report.
Thank you so much. Thanks again.